Good morning. It is Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. This is your deep dive daily briefing. I am your anchor, delivering a comprehensive analysis of the pivotal events that have defined the last 24 hours. We begin our broadcast on the world stage where the strategic landscape of the Middle East has been thrust back into deep uncertainty following a major diplomatic collapse. The high-stakes peace negotiations between the United States and Iran, held in Islamabad, Pakistan, have officially concluded without an agreement. The delegations, led by United States Vice President J.D. Vance and Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, engaged in a 21-hour marathon session that ultimately failed to bridge profound strategic divides. According to diplomatic sources, the United States demanded explicit commitments regarding the dismantling of Iran's nuclear enrichment programs and the immediate reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. In stark contrast, Iranian negotiators set preconditions requiring the unfreezing of national assets and comprehensive reparations for damages incurred during recent airstrikes. While the fragile two-week ceasefire brokered by Pakistan remains technically active until April 22, the military posture on both sides is rapidly hardening. The United States military has issued stern warnings of a potential blockade on all Iranian ports to force the reopening of maritime corridors, while Tehran has explicitly threatened asymmetrical strikes against allied port infrastructure in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, pushing the region back to the brink of full-scale war.
Transitioning from the front lines of diplomacy to the broader global economy, the collapse of the Islamabad summit has sent immediate shockwaves through international markets. The brief period of stabilization in energy costs has abruptly ended, as crude oil prices surged in early trading. Brent crude has once again pushed past the $100 per barrel mark, reflecting the market's realization that a swift resolution to the supply chain crisis is no longer viable. This renewed energy volatility severely complicates the global macroeconomic outlook. The OECD's fragile 3.2% global growth projection for 2026 is now under immense pressure, as economists warn that sustained triple-digit oil prices will create a structural drag on industrial productivity. Manufacturers across Europe and East Asia are bracing for an extended period of elevated operational costs, which will likely exacerbate existing stagflationary pressures as the friction of new trade tariffs combines with the rising cost of basic energy inputs.
In the realm of finance, all eyes are squarely on the credit markets as they process the implications of this diplomatic failure and the resulting flight to safety. The 10-year United States Treasury yield remains highly elevated, hovering near 4.4%, as investors digest the reality of a prolonged wartime economy and the mounting burden of the $315 trillion global debt pool. This environment of heightened geopolitical risk is causing significant liquidity stress within the non-bank lending sector. Institutional investors are accelerating their withdrawal requests from private credit funds, seeking to rapidly rebalance their portfolios away from riskier ventures and into defensive assets such as aerospace, defense, and sovereign bonds. Furthermore, the Federal Reserve is now widely expected to maintain a highly restrictive, hawkish stance on interest rates, as central bankers are forced to prioritize the containment of energy-driven inflation over any immediate support for cooling labor markets.
Turning our attention to the technology sector, the focus remains on a complex landscape defined by unprecedented infrastructure demands and severe geopolitical vulnerabilities. Despite the deteriorating international security environment, hyperscale cloud providers remain firmly committed to an aggressive $650 billion capital expenditure plan for 2026, aimed at securing next-generation artificial intelligence hardware. However, this sector faces a looming physical crisis. By the end of this year, global AI data centers are projected to require a staggering 96 gigawatts of electric power. This insatiable energy appetite is forcing tech giants to urgently seek alternative, off-grid energy sources, leading to a surge in direct negotiations for long-term nuclear power contracts. Concurrently, the collapse of the Middle East peace talks highlights the fragility of the global hardware ecosystem, as the ongoing supply chain disruptions in the Persian Gulf compound the existing production bottlenecks and chemical shortages currently hindering output at major semiconductor foundries in Taiwan.
Finally, we look at the logistics and supply chain networks that serve as the vital arteries of global commerce, which are now cementing a permanent structural rewiring. With the Islamabad negotiations failing to secure an immediate reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's strict quota of 15 commercial vessels per day remains actively enforced.
This de facto blockade leaves major ocean carriers with no alternative but to permanently adopt the Cape of Good Hope as their primary routing for Asia to Europe transit. This massive detour adds up to 14 days to voyage times and continues to artificially restrict global vessel capacity. In response to this inescapable logistical reality, 72% of global trade professionals are accelerating the deployment of AI-driven adaptive networks. The industry has definitively abandoned lean, just-in-time inventory models in favor of robust, regionalized just-in-case strategies, accepting the permanent cost premiums required to insulate global trade from volatile maritime choke points. That concludes our global briefing for today. Thank you for joining us.